All right, and welcome back. The conversation on people and politics still surrounds, the choice of running mate and how the politics is going to be moving forward. And now joining us in studio is Wangui, a communication professional. She's been here before. I think it's quite important for me to give her a minute to have opening remarks. Welcome. Let me hear your voice.
Hi, Victor.
Hi.
Thank you for having me again.
Asante karibu.
Well, I mean, today is a joyous day, I suppose. You know, with all that happened yesterday, I can imagine.
Yes.
It's gotten us to forget a bit about, pain at the pump and, the congestion on the expressway and that sort of thing. But I think it's an interesting conversation to have this morning. We have a really, visible running mate.
Yes.
And I suppose that's what we're here to talk about. Yeah.
The excitement is all over. All of a sudden, it didn't strike Kenyans' hearts and heads until that announcement was made.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think when I was coming in, I was just reflecting on it, and I was thinking, it's not lost on us the kind of joy, what that joy does, not just for families. I was talking to a couple of people yesterday, and they were saying it's actually joyous, even in the family setup, that there's a lot of happiness around what happened. It really was an announcement that people were expecting, but at the moment when it hit, it hit different. It felt. There was a lot of contentment with it. There was a lot of joy. There was a lot of analysis. People had all sorts of opinions on it, and it seems to not matter where you are on the political divide. I think there is something to be said, which is probably what we'll be discussing about Martha Karua and the price that she has paid to stand where she stands.
Okay.
Today, yeah.
It's quite an interesting bit, because we've talked about Martha Karua for the last few minutes. But let me bring you in, Mwesh. At the end of the day, the proposal of having Martha Karua's name there, we had several candidates. We had got Peter Kenneth, we had Joho, Honorable Joho, we had Lee Kinyanjui, Tarus, Sabina Chege. But all of them went for the interview, including Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, who actually also decamped yesterday to a different party to run for president. But then, the criteria of choosing the candidate, somebody said it was predetermined.
I'm not sure whether it was predetermined or not, but I think it was a question of what kind of a person we needed for this season.
Yes.
What kind of a person would be
the keyword, the person we needed for this season?
Yes.
Okay.
Who would assist the president to set the agenda of this country and move it forward to where it needs to be.
Yes.
She was a favorite, but how I would describe Martha is that people feel the time has now come. That was the clear message that the public was saying. The time, we are ready now for a woman in that position.
Yes.
And it is coming, I think it follows the manner in which the public received the current president of Tanzania. It was such a warm kind of a reception, a warm perception of what a woman leadership could look like,
Yes.
So it is about who we need for this season, and it was very much a public demand for a woman to be in that position. And so Raila could only have picked that particular woman, because the other choice of Sabina Chege is not a bad choice, but she is yet to be accepted as a national figure. So it was not her time then. But with Martha, it's different. She has earned her place on the table. Yes.
Okay, Weshimo, let me ask you, how does it affect the voting bloc, the voting pattern in the mountain? Because it's with almost 5 million votes to go for. How is it going to change? Because now we have got two presidential aspirants, running mates from the same region.
Initially, Azimio was already a front runner.
Yes.
in the campaigns. And as it is now, the Raila-Karua combination is a combination of reformists, people who have fought for reforms, not just economic but social and political reforms in our country. It's a team that is seen to be able to bring new things into our political practice. And there lies the popularity and the outburst of support. That now we have it, now we see a way forward. Something good must be going to be coming. Now, the mountain region, as you know, has a very strong interest in all aspects of our society. They have been in our politics right since independence. They are strong leaders in economic practice from the region. There are also development challenges right at grassroots, which have to be addressed. And it depends now how the two teams will present themselves to the mountain region as having the solutions to the issues and challenges which the people would like to be addressed and addressed urgently from the mountain area. So the final vote determination will depend on how the two camps will present themselves and would be received by the masses in the mountain area. From my experience, the mountain area tends to analyze issues with a lot of details before they arrive at a decision. So you cannot sway the mountain region en masse. No. You have to present an agenda, you have to articulate it well, you have to convince them on implementation capacities that you have. They will analyze those in a lot of details, consult themselves quite a bit, much more than maybe other communities. There's quite a big consultative process in the mountain region. After that process, they make a decision. And when they decide, it may not be possible to split it. If they decide in your favor, you have it. If they decide against you, too bad.
You live to fight another day. Wangui, it's quite important because the way she's going to package herself right now moving forward. Yesterday we saw her having an official written speech. Something that as an activist, Honorable Martha Karua is not used to. She's always off the cuff, but yesterday it was written. Her packaging from the word go seemed so different.
I think, okay, just let me answer that in two sort of spaces. So the first one, obviously, as the candidate, as the running mate, she did need a written speech. That would be standard practice for her to actually get written speech. But that's not to say that you could tell that it was done for her. You could tell how she read it and that sort of thing. You could tell that was done for her. But that is standard practice. But let's look at Martha Karua and packaging, because I hear she's very visual for us. She's very, the person that's very public figure, so we analyze her a lot. But let's look at packaging, really. Let's look at Martha Karua and how people have called her rigid, but look at how she has repackaged herself. I can tell you, from memory, I actually remember every single thing that she has done with, say, for instance, her hair. When she started out, say for instance what she did with her clothes. When she ran for the presidency in 2013, she actually completely repackaged. She moved away from what was wearing formal office wear into a lot of Ankara and a lot of prints and that sort of thing. And we saw that. She's had a very public, how do you say, image change over the years. And why is this? Because when you look at her speaking style, first, as a woman, she shoots from the hip. We will always remember I was not taught. Because that's her. When you put her in a space where she has to speak, she will speak what is on her mind. Which means that with her, you're not getting, former minister was talking about how she has always been, this person that you know what you're getting. And with Martha, that's it. There's no rehearsal, there's no practice. You know what she tells you is actually what you're getting. And I'm strictly speaking from a communication perspective. When she shares her content, that's what you're actually getting. So when you look at how she has packaged herself over the years, from the days when she was a magistrate, to the days when she was in activism, to the days when she became MP, to the days when she actually ran for president, then there's been people behind the scenes that have helped her come to who she has come to be right now. But I think one of the things I would comment about her as an individual in her communication style versus her personality, which people have talked about here in her leadership. But I think with her communication style, you're getting somebody who's very clear on what they need or what they're looking for. But you're also looking at somebody who, going forward, like someone commented earlier, going forward will need to be very inclusive of the voices that are around her, because that's what leadership is. Do I think she can do that? Yes, I think she can. Why? Because we have put her in places. She's earned her place in that sort of arena.
You know, it's quite interesting because Mheshimiwa, according to the IBC statistics, over 7,000 were independent candidates. That's a huge number. And if you look at that number, the number of women who have actually got into politics this time around is also off the roof. So with Martha Karua at the front line, we are likely to see from the county assemblies, of which plays a very pivotal role in the counties. Mheshimiwa will tell us more about that. National Assembly, the Senate. We would imagine how many women and ladies out there have been motivated to take the positions.
For me as a woman, it has not so much motivated me to take that position, but to remain firmly in the race no matter the outcome.
Right.
Yeah. You know, Martha didn't just land in this position.
It has taken a year.
It has taken her many years, many struggles, many defeats. And that is what I'm learning as a leader, not just from Martha, but from many other leaders. Leadership is not an entitlement. If you do not succeed today, there will always be another day to fight your battles. And so this resilience that she has shown for this amount of period, this period of time, is the lesson that I am taking from Martha. Not necessarily for me to be bold as a woman, but to firmly remain regardless of how the public treats you. Yes.
And you see, it's quite important because the reason why I asked that, you realize that as yesterday from Mombasa to whichever part of the country, the whole narrative changed because even men had some little space in our bulletins yesterday. It was all about women. So when you look at that, and with all the independent candidates now running for this position, some of them have actually won in the nominations and they're going for them. You can imagine how powerful and how the debates will be in the next regime, in the houses.
I mean, you know, as far as the independent card came about because I think for the very first time, the manner in which I may not be well versed with the history of politics in this country, but I tend to imagine that for the very first time, the manner in which the nominations were conducted is what triggered the high number of independent candidates. I think for the very first time we have had all political parties embracing a certain concept of electing their leaders, such as consensus. And the manner of reaching such kind of consensus was not very clear.
Right.
And I think that is what triggered the high rise of independent candidates. And certainly it did leave out a lot of formidable leaders. And it was very clear to the public this is what happened. And so you should expect that this time round, given that there is not a very dominant party across board,
yes,
and there are so many dynamics that come into play, there will be a lot of people will be considered in as much as they are independent candidates. It's not going to be party politics as much as it has been in the past. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, is it a threat to governance, to the governance of the counties and running of legislation and passing of legislation in the county assemblies? Because, you know, from the way she said and from the statistics, over 7,000 people running as independent candidates, it's going to be a hard nut to crack, even in articulating your manifesto in the county assemblies, because MCAs play a key role in the counties.
Victor, it is a serious development in our country, and it is an expression of dissatisfaction with the management of our political parties. We have absolutely no reason for having so many political parties.
Yes.
80 plus. What sense does it make? It just means...
But Kenya's fought for that space, multipartyism.
Yeah, no.
We never anticipated for us to have over 80 political parties.
You can call it democracy, you can call it freedom. But when it comes to effectiveness in policy formulation and development, it is a serious weakness. Because policy formulation and development is expected to be through the parties. It is the parties that reach the grassroots. It is the parties that should be able to get the views from a broad public constituency, formulate such views into policies for future implementation under a structure of a leadership structure. What we are still having is individuals feeling that they don't see a leader there whom they can follow, right? So they want to go on their own. And here let me make a point, Victor, that it is all right to do so as an individual. But then you have limits. Because how would an individual achieve representation in him as a person from over 40 different large communities in the Republic? It is just not possible. So when you go as an individual, you will find you have to reach out to other communities.
Yes, right.
By the time you wish to reach those other communities, there will be leaders under you from those other communities. And then you become a party. So you end up now stopping advocating issues as an individual and you register a party. Then we form a political party. At the next election, we break all those political parties and come back
it's a cycle.
Yes, come back to individual leaders. So I feel we are taking too long to develop party political practice in the country, because that is the only reliable basis of achieving policy implementation based on the needs expressed by our people from the grassroots. The other point I may wish to mention at this level is the position of a deputy. Individuals have no deputies, they are individuals.
Yes.
But the position of a deputy, that is the most difficult position in political practice. Because you are supposed to build your boss, not to build yourself. The moment you go building yourself, you create a conflict. Now, there are personalities who don't have that capacity of being able to build the boss, because they have always wanted to build themselves and would be taking the position of deputy as an opportunity to build themselves.
Exactly.
Now, that would be a big mistake. The moment a deputy begins to feel that, hey, I'm lucky, I'm deputy, now I have an opportunity to build myself, you immediately create a clash between you and the boss. Even though we change the constitution to call the deputy a running mate, which gives the deputy some stake of representation from the public. But the moment you are called deputy, your duty is to build one team, build the boss. Wait for your day when you will also have your own followers.
And you'll feel the heat. Let me just ask you briefly, why is it so hard to implement the 2/3 gender rule? You know, I'm asking because the ladies are here and you've been in parliament before. It's all over. It's still hanging in parliament and now we are going for an election. It's not been enacted.
Yes. Politics is really short of gifts.
Really, Mheshimiwa?
Very short of gifts. So there will be no gift to anybody. You have to earn it. You have to earn it. So our ladies, we have a lot of competent ladies. And if you sit, you can see we have quite a bit of leadership from the other gender, right?
Wangui, you've had that. It's more not short of gifts.
Yes.
Yes.
But they have to realize they have to earn it.
Yes.
It is competition. Conflicting interest is part and parcel of political practice. So you have to convey your interest. Our ladies must convey their interest as strongly as possible. And personally, having worked with so many, they are capable. But there are challenges on how best they would do this. Because here is a situation where you have a lady who is a competent leader, but actually has 3 bosses. There is a husband, there are children, and then there is a party. To be able to reconcile on these challenges.
It's only not ladies can multitask pretty much.
Yes, so they have harder challenges than the men. And we cannot blame them for the slow manner in which that leadership is being developed. But that is not to say that it cannot be done. You may also have realized that a lot of strong female leaders have lost their marriages because you are strong enough, you want to advocate a political position, and you forgot your family before you realized. So at the end of it, you end up being alone. So many of the good ones have suffered that in the process of developing their leadership capabilities and enhancing their chances of rising up in the leadership hierarchies. So the challenges our ladies are facing are higher than the challenges the men are facing. So we just have to be able to give them time to emerge. And we look forward to days when our men will look at the personal capacities, regardless of gender. And in that process, be supportive of a female leader or a lady leader as much as they would be supportive.
Ushma, I wish you turn and see how they're looking at you. Like. what are you saying?
No, actually, allow us jumping.
Exactly, Wangui. he's made his point.
Let me tell you, he makes very powerful points. And the first point that he talked about was when he's talking about how political spaces or parties need to be sort of spaces for building up leadership. Honestly, if we get that right, we will actually be able to find spaces where women can grow within leadership. Now, having said that, there's something, and this is such a truth, even for me, that Sheryl Sandberg, she of Meta, said once when she was speaking, and she was talking about the most important decision that a woman can make is the decision of who she decides to live with. So this is the decision of a spouse. Unfortunately, we don't take that into consideration so many times when we are looking at women in leadership spaces, because women do pay the price. That specific role, the role of being a wife, the role of spouse selection comes with so many dynamics that are all unseen. So what people see visually will be the slowness in being able to achieve a leadership status or being able to do well in the office. It's not that we are incompetent or incapable. There are tons of women that are actually the foundation of so many things that we see today. But here is the thing, the dynamics and the unseen, and this is why, when you and I sit, I tell you that words only account for 7% of communication. 93% is what is not said. I think we can say the same in leadership, that a lot of the percentages of what we don't see in leadership are the dynamics behind the scenes. Now, put women in that position, and you're looking at a woman that has to deal with, let me use the 3 bosses. The actual boss, the one that can actually be seen, which could be her business. It could be the boss, the physical boss that she's seeing. But it could also be the dynamic of children, and it could also be the dynamic of the spouse. Now go behind the scenes and look at what's happening.
Right.
So with children, there's micro dynamics over there. There's their schooling, there's their extracurricular activities, there's what they need in terms of, the home. With the spouse, there's dynamics between family relations and that sort of thing. You look at, relations with her own family, relations with in-laws. You see, these are things that we don't look at as being consequential to leadership, but they are, and they're very strong when you bring women to the fore. Now, how is the price paid for those? You have women that actually, break through, and they're the ones that you will see as the strong personalities, the Marthas, the cholerics of this day and age. And they're the ones we call stubborn. They're the ones that we call, square pegs in round holes. They're the ones that don't seem to fit, but really it's the dynamic behind there. Yes. And then there is those that actually work behind the scenes. And it's not that they're not looking for the recognition, and it's not that they do not need the recognition. It's that they work behind the scenes because that's how the elements of whatever leadership they're trying to navigate has to come through. So when we talk about leadership and communication in this sense, these are dynamics that need to actually come out, because we're very, very quick to judge, and we're very quick to, if we were to just look at, specifically, let's give credit to the woman of the day. If we were to look at Martha's journey, really, up until the point where she stood on that podium yesterday, it has been blood, sweat, and tears.
Blood, sweat, and tears. Hold on a bit. you know what, Wesh? Before I come back to you, we are going to take a break. But the 2/3 gender rule, and Weshimiwa has talked about, is more, the gift bit of it. You have to sweat for it and what have you. But the Constitution also stipulates that position of a woman representative. But how clear is it that women, even at that particular point, they still find themselves struggling to find themselves in between, can we say, a patriarchal kind of society we live in right now? But still, I know you are going for that particular seat as well. So let's wait and see how it's going to pan out. Let's take a break, and when we come back, the conversation still continues for the last bit. We'll be right back.
Yeah.
And welcome back. We are on the final stretch of the conversation, People in Politics, and today is all about women. That's why I have got two ladies in studio and a gentleman. Today, but anyway, it's still gender balance, 2-2, all right? Okay, Weshimiwa, the point of gender card, it's out there, and I can say that Kenya is slowly embracing the effect of the gender balance, which is quite elusive, but slowly we are getting it there.
We are trying. We are trying. And the reason why we are justifying the 2/3 gender rule is because we are still a very much patriarchal society. And our male counterparts are yet to accept the fact that a woman can play a role as maintain her role in the family just as well as out there in the marketplace. So they are yet to still accept that, and that is why we are still we want to prove that point, that it is actually possible. So for that to happen, we need to secure certain spaces for women to take the leadership positions, so that the men can just sample their leadership and accept that actually it is possible for us to embrace women leadership without compromising the family setups. But something interesting has come out when my colleagues were speaking, and this is that the fact that it is a challenge for a woman to balance these two roles. And picture this, in advanced democracies like in Europe and in the Americas, it is far more difficult actually for a woman to be a leader there than it is here in Africa. If you look at the family setup in those areas, it is very expensive, for example, a woman to get the necessary help
Yes.
To be able to delegate some of her duties within the family setup in order for her to go to the marketplace. But here in Kenya, actually, it is more simplified. It is cost effective for us to get helps, and so I wonder really where this threat is coming from. The fact that the family will be at jeopardy if the woman leaves the home to come and assume her role in a leadership position. I feel that it is misplaced, and if there are people who we need to look up to are the people in the Western countries and how they are doing it and how they are managing well. So it's a very simplistic way of looking at the possibility of women being able to balance these two roles. I think that argument is now. It has been overtaken by time. Yeah.
I hope that was directed to you. I told you.
It's very possible. It's very possible for us to do, and it's actually possible because we are able to afford getting the necessary help to help us achieve that. Yeah.
How are we going to get accommodated? The women leaders, sometimes they fear that when they go for the campaigns, they fear the attacks, they fear the verbal attacks, so to speak. Some of them are even physical attacks. How, for example, in your own county, we have got several, aspirants running for various positions. How can women be assured of their safety? Because it's now political season and they are going out there to compete for this position, same as men. How, you're a national leader, what should you assure women leaders out there?
The violence is a style employed by some leaders, not all. Now, in a competition where you have the opponents belonging to the violent category, whether they are men or women. Some women can also be very violent.
I'm glad to imagine that.
It is the leaders who introduce violence in the hope that the application of violence would help them achieve their objectives. We don't have that problem as of now in Migori, for example. And if you look at the history of violence in our politics, you will be able to narrow it down to the personalities who are involved. Some of us are born as leaders who look for judgment in the right manner, and others are made of people who want to take power, regardless of whether they qualify, regardless of whether they have enough followers, and so on. So it is the objectives of the leaders that bring in violence. And this has to be discouraged. I think we have enough legislation now to deal with it. And where it is happening in the counties, the security agencies are in place now effectively, literally in all counties and at national level, to deal with these practices. We have to learn to articulate issues, present issues that would be acceptable to people, and forget that violence may give you a position now, but will solve no problem thereafter. You are not going to continue fighting everybody to follow you. So it is a wrong practice which should be totally discouraged.
Absolutely. Yes. Wangui, when you look at the scenario we have right now, it's picking traction, and sooner or later, some of us will not even be in studio. We'll be out there, and you can imagine how it's going to be. But for us to have a smooth running of messaging out there to the people, more of them will be how I can mud-sling my opponent for me to gain. But should that be the case?
Absolutely not. Like when we're looking at it, again, and please allow me to keep alluding to this, the political spaces that we're creating are the places that will determine what kind of leadership. You see that Mheshimiwa is talking about the creation of policies, the creation of formulating ways in which we will move forward will be found in these leadership spaces. So some of these things, off the step, we were just talking about, during the break, we were talking about, are we looking at domination? Because we're looking at, yes, women rising, but are we looking at women really dominating? Because then that would take us right back to where we've come from, where there was patriarchy. Now when we have matriarchs running the show, does it mean that, that's how things will work? I don't think so. I think what we're looking at is a healthy balance of these two genders within whatever space. It is the leadership space, that's what we're talking about in this context. But then how we make it safe is also by creating mentorship levels where women begin to understand that men are not their enemies, and men begin to understand that women are not their enemies. Actually, we are collaborators to make better societies, because leadership in and of itself doesn't help us. If it doesn't get the society to the level where there is harmony, to the level where our children grow up in safe spaces, it doesn't work. So it's a balance of each understanding what are the communication dynamics of the same. When men begin to understand communication styles of women, women begin to understand communication styles of men, generally speaking. And you begin to see, though I don't speak like this person and they don't speak like me, there's a place of understanding. And that's how we can handle things such as the violence, and we can handle things such as the mudslinging. We can actually look at character building and mentoring, especially now, because you're going to have a space. This space, the way Mas is talking about this space being time for women, it's actually going to rise to a certain level. What happened yesterday and what has been happening within this space, just remember there's 15-year-olds, 7-year-olds who are watching all of this, 17-year-olds, 20-year-old women who are watching all of this, and they're also coming into this space. So how do we grow this space in a healthy way? Is by teaching balance and not necessarily domination. I'm
told you're running out of time, but I want to get your final remarks, and I want to treat that as your final remark.
Yes.
Ladies first again, Mheshimiwa, ladies first.
So,
what should we expect from Kiambu Town? 9th of August is just, days away. And there's no time for politicians, there's no time left.
Well, as far as the decision of running mate is concerned, they are very watchful to see who are these candidates that are being presented to us. And so there's going to be, if any party felt that Kiambu was a stronghold, now they need to go back to the drawing board and actually try and strategize how they will cement it as a stronghold. It is not business as usual. After the selection of running mate, a lot of opinions have shifted. So as far as Kiambu Town is considered, we are watching closely at the two running mates. We are watching closely, and we want to know more who these people are.
Okay. I do wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Asante. Migori Town, my neighboring county, the issue of Sugar Belt and the other regions, this zone received a governor this time. It has to go to the other side. How is it going to play out this time as your closing remark, Mheshimiwa? And what should we expect?
Well, zoning is used by politicians to achieve some cheap support. That you belong here, so I expect all of you to vote here. Kenya is now overdue for service delivery kind of focus. So that you should tell us what you are going to do for us, what we are missing, and what then you are going to do. And that is what we are emphasizing in Migori. What are we going to do in terms of agricultural reform so that we achieve higher productivity in agriculture? What are we going to do in healthcare so that we achieve efficient, available healthcare? What are we going to do in development of tourism? What are we going to do in the establishment of new industries?
Yes.
Because the biggest challenge is employment for the youth. We have several graduates, who have been on tarmac for 4, 5, 6 years with a degree. So what are we going to do to create employment? You don't create employment by consumption. You create employment by allocating more resources for industrial development. You set up new industries. Like in Migori, we need new industries to take care of our agricultural production. We'll get new industries out of irrigation. We'll get tourism developed out of the use of the lakefront, which we have with very good beaches. So our focus will be on job creation, and that is establishment of industries. That means higher resource allocation in the creation of new industries and management of the public services, instead of on consumption expenditure.
Okay, Mheshimiwa, allow me to stop there, and I promise to call you back some other time so that we can talk more on devolution. And we're soon coming to Migori County for gubernatorial debate. Please avail yourself. Usipote.
Subject to my hours.
All right. Thank you so much. That was Honorable Dalmus Otieno, who is a former minister and now gubernatorial aspirant to Migori County. I've also been joined by Wangui, communication specialist and expert here in Kenya. Thank you so much for your valid opinion, as well as Mheshimiwa Honorable Wanjiru, who is also an advocate and running for that position in Kiambu Town. Please vote for her. All right, did I say that? All right. Let's talk about that particular point. My name is Victor Oloo. We are taking a break, but the show continues after this. We'll be right back.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Victor.